My life is a miracle. Every child has a story of God's love to share. Shalom World, tune into God's love story.
Hello and welcome to Found by Shalom World. I'm your host from Ireland, Katie Ascough. Found is a show about conversion stories, whether someone was raised Catholic and had to eventually choose their faith for themselves, or maybe they started out atheist and had to find their faith along the way. Each story is unique and each is inspiring. Today we're talking with Father Stephen Wang. He's someone who was raised Anglican, he then lost his faith, and at age 19 he entered into the Catholic Church. Just 6 years after that, he also entered into the seminary. So he currently serves as a senior university chaplain for the Archdiocese of Westminster. He hosts his own YouTube channel, Pause for Faith, and he's involved with Sycamore, an informal course about the Christian faith. So we'll be asking Father Stephen all about his conversion to Catholicism and his work with thousands of young people in the UK. Father Stephen, you're very welcome to the show.
Really nice to be with you, Katie. Thanks for having me.
So how are things in London at the moment?
They're okay, but it's a strange time, as you can imagine, especially being a university chaplain. A lot of students are here, but a lot of students are staying home because of all the different COVID restrictions. So it's just trying for us as a chaplaincy to connect with students as much as possible, even though things are very different from normal.
Mm-hmm. And how has that been affecting your ministry? I imagine it's probably changed a lot.
Yeah, like everyone, we've had to adjust a lot. We're able to meet in different ways remotely. Last semester, just before Christmas, we were trying to have as many activities in person as possible, but they got more and more restricted as the lockdown became stricter. So most of our contact with students now is remote. It's Zoom, it's Teams, it's phone calls, and it's just trying to support students, pray with them, do as many activities as we can with them, but knowing that for a lot of them they're all over the world and they're feeling a little bit detached from campus life, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can only imagine. And I guess we'll get right to the crux of it. This is a show about conversion stories. And you have quite a dramatic one yourself, Father. I hope you don't mind me saying. So can you just walk us through your journey of faith, starting at the beginning? What did it look like for you?
Yeah, I don't know if it's dramatic or not. My life seems very normal to me. I must say that I grew up in a Christian family with a Christian mum and a Christian dad, and a really sort of loving, solid, faithful family life as a young child. But I guess the sense of conversion is because certainly when I got to 9, 10 or 11, I didn't have much faith at all. So the faith, the little bit of childhood faith I did have had definitely slipped. So by the time of going to senior school, to high school, 11, 12, I had no faith. I was telling friends I was an atheist, didn't go to church, and just living a very ordinary teenage life. So in that sense, coming to what I'd say was a living faith in those years of about 16, 17, 18, that was a really important time. And looking back, I think, yes, it was dramatic in the sense of I can see that God was doing amazing things in my life in very gentle ways and gradually leading me to know the Lord and to know his church. So life changed a lot in those years of high school and that age, 16, 17, 18.
And what do you think led you away from your faith during your teenage years? It seems to be kind of a difficult age. I think if you're raised in the faith, it's kind of those teenage years that you really wrestle with, am I Christian? Do I believe these things? So do you remember what it was that kind of turned you away from the faith that you were raised in?
Well, I would say it wasn't so much turning away. As I say, I had a notional Christian background growing up. It's not like I became a teenager and rejected my childhood faith. It's just the little faith that I had wasn't certainly strong enough to sustain me. So there wasn't a big rejection. I was just an 11-year-old going off to high school with no faith and assuming that there was no God and there wasn't much meaning to life. That was just normal, and that was what most of my friends were like. I went to a local school. It wasn't a Christian school. Hardly any of my friends had any faith background at all. So just it was a very secular world I was in at school, and the mentality and the culture and the conversation, it was completely secularized. So there wasn't a big rejection. It was just the normal secular world that I was in as a teenager. And then, as I say, the Lord just speaking to me in different ways and opening up things that I'd never thought about as a young teenager before.
And do you mind me asking, what were those things? What was that transition like from not having faith to, at a very young age, I think, was it 17 around there, that you really kind of found Catholicism and really entered into it?
Yeah, I think with hindsight, I can say God was speaking to me in different ways. And at the time, they didn't all add up, but gradually they did. A key thing for me was just, of all my secular friends living a completely worldly teenage life like I was and they all were, there were in fact 2 Catholics. I hardly knew they were Catholics, but they were still going to Mass on a Sunday evening. So just, I remember one Sunday afternoon we were hanging out together, and they said, "Oh, we're going to Mass. Do you want to come with us?" I think I was 16 then. And I just went out of curiosity, and look, they weren't trying to convert me or anything. It was just what they did. So walking into that Catholic church that Sunday evening really took me by surprise, the effect of it. I can just remember walking in still, and something about, I mean, I can use this language now. I would say I had a sense of the presence of God. I couldn't have put it in those words then, but just a sense that there was something profound and different and meaningful in the prayer of the Mass and the worship, the faith of the people sitting around me. Something spoke to me then in the silence and the beauty of the Mass that I couldn't have put into words. And I think that opened up a number of different things then. I became more conscious of their faith, these 2 friends. I started to go to Mass out of curiosity a little bit. I started to read the Bible. There was a Bible, I don't know, hanging, I think it was my granny's Bible at home that I just picked off the shelf. And I remember reading St. John's Gospel, you know, those profound words in the Last Supper, the final discourse. And just, again, something speaking to me in the words of Jesus, speaking to his disciples. Reading, and then a huge moment, I think, for anyone coming to faith was realizing that this interest, this curiosity, that there was something personal in it. It wasn't just like reading a book and becoming interested in something in an abstract way. It was the moment of realizing that actually maybe I should be praying. And I'd say that was a real turning point. It was going to see the Anglican chaplain at my school, talking to him in a very kind of slightly academic, abstract way. I was a little bit afraid of being too personal. I didn't want to admit that Christianity interested me, but just saying, "Oh, tell me about this, and why do Christians believe that? What about this?" And at the end of this conversation, Father Robbie, he's a Catholic priest now, but he said to me, "Stephen, do you want to pray? Do you mind if I pray with you and for you?" Which really took me by surprise. But I said yes, reluctantly. And I think that was the first moment of genuine personal prayer as a young adult. Someone else leading me into that prayer, and then going home that evening and taking the plunge and taking that step of making a prayer of my own for the first time as an adult, probably the first time since I was about 5. So just the example of friends popping into a church for Mass, reading the Bible, prayer, all of this gradually came together and put me on a journey where I would say, again, with hindsight, I was searching for the Lord and he was searching for me, and eventually led me to speak to my Catholic priest in my local parish and to be instructed and to be received and confirmed as a Catholic then when I was 19, just before going off to university.
Wow. And it sounds like you had a lot of independent study in that time, but you also had your two friends and this priest who seemed to mentor you a little bit. Was community really important at that time? I guess especially not having your parents Catholic, I don't think at that time. Was it really important that you had those friends to walk with you, or did you kind of feel like this was your intellectual journey, you had to figure it out for yourself?
Yeah, I think it was both. It was both. And look, at this time, my mum was a Catholic by this time,
Okay.
but she would hardly have talked about faith at home not because of her lack of faith. She had a profound faith, and I trust and hope that she's with the Lord now. But she would have been very nervous speaking about faith to me as this bolshy atheist teenager. So coming onto that journey of faith, I would say I wouldn't have been on that journey without the example of friends and without the prayers of my mum, and I'm sure other people as well. In other words, people of faith were there as part of my life and were in the background. And then when I did begin to admit to my mum, I mean, it was terrible for a teenager to have to admit to his mum that he was actually interested in something she was interested in, and that she might be right about something that I thought
How
she was wrong.
embarrassing.
It was really embarrassing. But when I did admit to mum that I was interested in exploring and going to church, then we began to have conversations, and her faith became much more real for me and alive. And she was a huge influence on me, the witness of her faith, but in that kind of indirect, gradual way. Friends were very important. In terms of that, as I say, they weren't kind of full-on evangelists. This wasn't friends going on Catholic websites, going to retreats, trying to evangelize their friends. It was just two of the most ordinary Catholics in the world from very ordinary families, but who still went to Mass on Sunday evening. And it was their example.
It was very effective, because you might not have wanted to be, preached at or converted, kind of have your friends trying to convert you, if that makes sense. Would that have put you off? So maybe this was better.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. So people and friends and examples, and as I say, a really loving Anglican chaplain at school, being very kind and being brave enough to pray with me, and eventually a Catholic parish priest who went through the catechism with me and answered my questions and was very patient when I was, fighting about doctrines and not believing things and struggling with things. So people were really important. But equally, I'm the kind of person that I did have a lot of time alone, reading the scriptures, going for walks, thinking about things and reflecting and praying. But the experience, I would say, of Catholic community, it only came after I was a Catholic. Just because other than my mum and these two friends, I didn't know any other Catholics. So when I went to university and went to my chaplaincy at university, that was a huge experience, just to meet other young Catholics and to meet. I only knew one priest. I was 19, went to university. I'd only ever met one priest in my life. I only knew 3 Catholics. So I would say the community experience and the effect of that on my faith, that came alive when I was a new Catholic at university. And it's one reason I'm so committed to university chaplaincy as a priest now, because it made such a difference to my life. Having loving priests, loving religious sisters, loving lay people, a fantastic community of young people, loads of talks and volunteering and activities, and just the ordinariness of Mass and prayer and being others in the church.
That's amazing. And it sounds like you were always very mission oriented, and then that obviously led to you becoming a priest, and now you're the senior chaplain for the Archdiocese of Westminster. You work a lot with young people. You also have a bit of a public profile. So I'm just really interested to know, I feel like you have this unique insight. You deal with thousands of young people in the UK. What do you think young people are wrestling with today when it comes to the faith? What do you see? Do you see that they're receptive to the Catholic faith, or are they struggling with certain things? I feel like our culture can be so hostile. So what do you see in young people?
Yeah,
through your
yeah,
Bible?
yeah. No, look, I've been very lucky to have had 8 years working at the seminary in Allen Hall here in Westminster Diocese when I was teaching, which is mainly working with young people, and then 8 years now as a university chaplain in central London, working with people from all over the world at the 30 universities in London. So it's been a huge chunk of my priesthood, and really happy in that. Although who knows, honestly, everywhere I've been very happy, whether it's a hospital, a prison, an old people's home, but just, yeah, I've been very blessed to work with young people. I think I'd say it's mixed. You asked me where are young people and what's on their hearts and how do they live their faith. I think it's very mixed. I think there are some wonderful committed Catholics who are just really, they've had something has touched them. They've had, it might be their family, it might be a chaplaincy, it might be a school or a youth movement, and their faith has come alive. And thank God there are so many things to support them now, especially through the internet and the way that you can connect with groups. So if you're a young Catholic trying to get support and connect with people, you can get it in a way that you couldn't 30 years ago when I was a new Catholic. So there's so many blessings. And I'd say there's a core group of people very committed. But on the other hand, there's a lot of Catholics who've grown up, nominally as Catholic or going to church, that just haven't had something to help bring their faith alive. They haven't maybe had the support from their parish, or there's no criticism here, but just it's tough, isn't it, being a young person? They haven't had the gift of being able to go on World Youth Day or going to a university where there is a really alive chaplaincy or connecting with other young people. So I feel for them, and I'd say one of the great challenges for the church is how to connect with young Catholics who are maybe hovering and unsure about their faith, and give them an experience of faith that's really life-giving, which can happen in so many ways. But just how do you make the faith real for young people, help them to see how relevant it is to their lives, and help them to see the joy of being with other young people of faith, and the joy of knowing the Lord, and the life-changingness of it, and how important it is that they've got mentors and friends and examples of other people whose faith have come alive and can support them in that way. So there's really committed Catholics, and I see a lot of them at the chaplaincy. There's Catholics who are sort of searching and on the edge and not sure where they're going, and we see quite a few of them, and I know lots of Catholics like that. But of course, the huge concern is there's so many young people who have no connection with faith whatsoever, and are living in some places a very secularized culture and a secularized world, and other places it's not necessarily secular, but it's incredibly pluralistic. There's so many options out there for them, and they're often not getting a really life-giving, beautiful example of faith. And again, it's the longing to be present in the lives of young people. For how can the church be present for young people? How can they be present for each other as Catholics in a way that will just open the door? And then this is the thing I'm really convinced about, is that when the door is open, when a Catholic here does bring a friend to something at the chaplaincy, and they see the joy of Catholics, or they go to a Bible study group and they have the scriptures opened up for them, or they just come to Mass and they see the beauty of, now it's difficult with COVID, but just in normal life, they see the beauty of the liturgy and the Mass and the worship of God and the music and the contemplative silence during the Mass, and seeing other young people. When the door is open to people and they are open to faith, it changes lives. So many times I've seen the lives of young people who are not very connected or apparently not very open, but something really profound has changed because someone has helped them to come to the threshold of the church, to just look in the door.
Yeah, and I think that's very, very true. And I know, Father, you run some of your own apostolates. You have your YouTube channel, Pause for Faith, and you're involved with Sycamore. Can you just tell us, where can people find those resources?
These are, if you like, my main work is simply being a university chaplain here, which I love, and I'm also the vocations director in Westminster Diocese. But I've been involved in these couple of projects. Sycamore is a project of evangelization and faith formation and catechesis. So it's simply a program with some wonderful films and a way of having group discussions and bringing people together. But we've had a fantastic team behind it, and we recommend it to people to explore. It's sycamore.fm, sycamore.fm, Foxtrot Mike. Or you can find it on Facebook at Sycamore. Just to look for Sycamore Seek is our Facebook, and our Instagram handle, Sycamore Seek, one word. So that's great. Please explore Sycamore if you've got time. And the Pause for Faith is very, very simple. It's just been a little bit of online formation and prayer and discussion, mainly because of the lockdown. So there's a library of videos there now. There's a YouTube channel. You can just search for Pause for Faith YouTube, or there's also a Facebook page as well. If you just look for the handle at Pause for Faith, you should be able to find it, to have a look and see what we've been doing here in the chaplaincy in those different ways.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Father, for your time and for all the work that you're doing.
Great to be with you, Katie. God bless. Thanks a lot.
God bless. That was Father Stephen Wang here on Shalom Worlds Found. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
I spent much of my 39 years as a priest working with young people, and I've constantly found young people to be wonderful, yearning for something beautiful in their lives, yearning for peace, yearning for shalom. That's why I really hope that Shalom Media will be able to communicate that message of hope to young people who are told to expect so little from themselves. And so I really wish the blessing of God to come on all of you who follow the programs with Shalom Media, to ensure that young people will hear the good news of the gospel about a God who believes in us. So with that in mind, we ask the blessing of the Lord on Shalom and all that it does, and on all of you who follow its programs right around the world. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.